Am I hassled? Good question. No, not yet. Okay. Right. Oh, we got Brian here. Hi, Brian. Brian Sternveld's here. Hillary Mason's here. Welcome to everybody who is here tonight on Zoom. Welcome to those of you on Facebook Live. And most importantly, welcome to everybody who's here in person. Make this share. Yes, absolutely. You make this share much more worthwhile. It's great to have the people give a round of applause. Absolutely. Yeah. It's great to have people here on the digital media, but it's even greater to have people here in real person. And we have 2, 4, 6, 8 people here. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to be dealing with a few things in Parasha Noach, a few interesting things that I saw that I'd like to share with you. It's been quite some time since we've had a shir because we had a 3-week course during Elul about change. Then we had Tuesdays, week in, week out. We didn't have a shir because it was Rosh Hashanah, then was Erev Yom Kippur, then was Shmini Atzeres, then was first, second night Sukkot, then was Simchas Torah. So it's been almost like 8 or 10 weeks since we've had a shir. So it feels like it's a new year, it's a new beginning. We're starting afresh. It's wonderful. So I'd like to discuss with you today some interesting ideas. Number one, we talk about Noach, and Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky points out over here, as do many others, that Noach really had a job to do. Noach's job was to let people know. You can't hear? I'll try, okay? Or Mochi, move a bit closer, move over here. Moch, it's easier. Sorry, my voice doesn't travel. I'm not that loud. Everybody always complains about my voice, right? Yeah. So what happens is you have Noach has been tasked with building this ark for 120 years. And Rashi tells us already, well, why did he have to build this ark over 120 years? Why didn't God just save him any other way? So Rashi tells us the reason he had to build the ark over 120 years was because people should come past and should say, excuse me, what are you doing? So I'm building an ark. What's an ark? You know, it's like a big boat. What do you need that big boat for? God's going to be bringing a flood. I always think to myself, he's like one of these crazy guys that stands on Market Street and screams about the Armageddon. Do you know what I'm talking about, the guys? The end of the world is near. You know, and you're like, oh, you're crazy. Yeah. So Noach was that crazy guy. Noach was a guy that had to do this for 120 years. And as the boat is taking shape and getting bigger and bigger, and they're finally saying, Noach keeps on saying to people, hey guys, God is going to destroy the world. And there's a flood coming. And if you don't do tshuva, if you don't repent, it's going to go pear-shaped. And guess what? How many people did Noach manage to change? None. So let me ask you, if you were in that business, in the business of outreach, and in 120 years, you've changed nobody, you'd be like the biggest failure out there. Yeah? Pardon? I'm not going to get into that one, Brian. You're opening up a can of worms over here, and I don't eat worms because they're not kosher. Yeah? I don't know. You know what? This is beyond me. I can't really comment on the politics. I don't know what is, what will be, et cetera, et cetera. The only question over here is you have somebody that fails. You know, somebody goes into business. Imagine you had a guy that went into business. So what are you going to do? I'm going to become, I don't know, I'm going to start selling mortgages. So after 1 month, he said, have you sold any mortgages? No, I've advertised it in lots and lots of places. I've not yet sold any mortgages, but soon. 2 months later, 3 months later, 6 months later, the guy's still not. A year later, he's still not done a single. At one point or another, what are you going to say to the guy? Mortgages is not my thing. You should try something else. I'm not good at anything else. Well, you might want to just consider trying to train up at something else because mortgages ain't working, okay? I don't know what will or what won't work for you, but this isn't working. So God takes Noach. He tells Noach, I would like you to become my ambassador in this world, to tell the world about the fact that the world's going to be destroyed. And what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. And the question is, why? Why was Noach so unsuccessful? So on Sunday, I spoke about it. In Vine Street, I was invited to speak. I spoke about it. It's something that I've said previously. But tonight, I'd like to share a different answer with you, which I think is a very insightful answer. some of these things that you read, they're very beautiful. Some of them, I don't know if this is sort of like something I would say that's like, oh, that's a beautiful answer. But I think the inside of it is brilliant. What Noach basically said is similar to what Avraham Avinu said. Avraham Avinu, if you remember the whole story with Avraham Avinu, and we'll speak about it more next week, maybe. Avraham Avinu, his father was called Terach, and Terach had a shop full of idols. And Avraham Avinu one day was, well, at the time it wasn't called Avinu yet, but we'll call him Avraham Avinu anyway. So you have Avram, this young man Avram, and he's been tasked to look after his father's shop full of idols. And he didn't believe in these idols, and he thought this was just a bunch of nonsense, a load of rubbish. So what happens is Avraham Avinu takes an axe or takes a hammer and literally smashes up the entire shop. What a great insurance claim. The insurance company walks in, they're going like, there's nothing left over here. But then he walks over to the biggest idol there of them, and he puts the axe in his hand, and his father comes in and he says, what happened to my shop? Gets down on his knees. He's crying, my beautiful idols, they're all gone. Everything's gone. What happened? And Avraham Avinu says the following. This is where your kids start to get clever. When your kids start to get clever and start to catch you out? You're my kid, all right? Don't do that. Quiet. So the kids, Avraham Avinu says to him, you can't believe what happened. I was watching them and the idols got into an argument. They got into fight. And each one said, I'm the greatest, I'm the biggest, I'm the strongest. Until the biggest one of them took that, you see the hammer he's holding? Took that hammer, ran through the crowd, knocked the smithereens out of everybody else, and that's why there's nothing left. That's why there's nobody left, except for the big one holding the hammer. Okay? What did Avraham Avinu's father say to that one? Don't be stupid. It's an idol, for goodness sake. It can't swing a hammer. It can't walk. It can't do any of that stuff. That's ridiculous. Where did you come up with that one? Tell me the truth this time. To which Avraham Avinu says, well, the truth is that I did it. But if you admit that the idol is so stupid and can't even move and can't even wield a hammer or anything else, why in the world would you serve that idol? Good question. So what does Avraham Avinu's father do with him? He doesn't say, you know what, my son, you're so right. I must mend my ways. We never do that. So what does he do with him? He brings him to Nimrod. Nimrod, who was the king, the evil king at the time, and he gets in a whole argument. Then Nimrod says, I'm going to throw you into furnace of fire, and if your God can save you, let him save you. And God saves him. Okay, that's the story over there. But what happens is, Avraham Avinu basically gives over this argument that these idols are worthless. And Noach was making the same argument. He was trying the same argument on the people of his generation. Hey guys, these idols are worthless. Why do you serve these idols? What are you doing? And yet, nobody listened. Why did nobody listen? Why would nobody listen? And here is the insight that Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky says, which is brought many times in different places, and it's a really important insight. Many times, people's beliefs are shaped and are dictated to by their wants, right? We like to think to ourselves, I believe X, Y, and Z, and therefore this is the way I behave. But many times it's the other way around. I'd like to behave in a way that's X, Y, and Z. And therefore, I am going to believe certain things. Because belief sometimes becomes very convenient. So if I believe in one God that looks after all of us, that knows exactly what we're doing, that will hold us accountable, what does that mean as far as my life is concerned? I got to start taking responsibility. Because you know what? God doesn't miss a beat, doesn't miss a trick. There's nothing I can do on this world that he doesn't see. There's nothing I can do on this world that he doesn't remember. And there's nothing I can do on this world that I'm not going to get some kind of retribution for. It's just not going to happen. That's not how the world functions. And so therefore, I need to know that God's watching, and I need to behave commensurately to that. But let's say I don't really want to behave. I want to do my own thing. But if I believe in God, that's a really inconvenient system of beliefs for someone who wants to do their own thing. So what do many people therefore say? I don't believe. Or, no, I don't believe in that God. I believe in a different God. We have this one, that one, the God of this, the God of love. And Rambam tells us, and many others speak about this, that the idea of idol worship developed actually from the want of people to be able to do their own things, specifically in the spheres of sexual immorality. So if a person wants to be immoral, and the same thing, by the way, happened in Greece. In Greece, by the way, who were the gods? You had Zeus as the main god, and you have all these other little gods, the different gods that were underneath them, etc., etc. There was the god of love, and the god of light, and the god of rain, and then this one, and then that one. But all of these gods, how did the gods in Greece behave? When you read Greek mythology, which I don't recommend, but if you read Greek mythology, you'll read about the gods that are angry and jealous and gluttonous and hedonistic. All those things that the Greek society had, what do? They created gods to match their temperaments, to match who they are. So you know what? If my God gets angry, then I can get angry. And if my God is immoral, then I can be immoral. And if my God loves eating, then I can make orgies for eating. I can do anything I want to, because I can, once I create my own gods, I make God in my image, not that God makes me in his. And once I make God in my image, so I will create the image of God in a way that suits me best. What's going to suit me best? Well, whatever it is I like to do. So if I like to be immoral, I'll create an immoral God. If I like to have wars, I'll create gods that like to war with each other, because that suits me. That's really, really good, because I really would like to be a certain way. And if my God's a certain way, then I can be a certain way. And all I need to do is every once in a while placate the God by, you know what, God, you're upset? Here's a pig. Here's a cow. Here's a sheep. Slaughtered it. You're happy now? Great. Let me do whatever the heck I want to. So that's a different system of belief. And Noach says to people, guys, these gods aren't real. And they're like, oh. And he thought he was really getting to people by saying to them, guys, they're not real. The gods aren't real. But most of the people knew, they're like, we know the gods aren't real. You're not sort of enlightening us by somehow telling us something we didn't realize. I knew those gods weren't real. But I want to do whatever I want to. So therefore, the point that Noach is making to them, Noach's failure comes from what? A failure to realize what the issue really is, where the problem lies, what these people were trying to do, why they were trying to do whatever they're trying to do. So if I'm going to try to convince you of something and you're convinced of it already, and what your whole modus operandi is for a whole different reason, how successful am I going to be at getting through to you? Not at all. Why? Because that's never been the issue. It's never been the issue that they thought that these gods were real. The issue was they were in it for themselves. I would like to satisfy my own lusts and desires. So you say, but that idol is not real. Okay, agreed. And therefore what? I shouldn't go and satisfy my lusts and desires? I still want to satisfy my lusts and desires. What you have to say to the person is, if you satisfy your lusts and desires in this world, you get punished for it in the next world. There are rules, there are regulation. God has given us a framework. So God says, I would like people to feel that they can satisfy themselves. Food, we're not against food in Jewish religion. Fun, we're not against that. Marriage, we're not against that. Intimacy, we're not against that. We're not against any of those things. But everything's got to have boundaries. We put everything in a boundary. So we say, you can eat, you can have great food. Certain things you can't eat. You can have great times. Certain things you can't do. You can have a great emotional and intimate relationship, but with one spouse, not with a million people. That's just the boundaries around God saying, I'd like you to have a great time in this world, but I'd like you also to have boundaries for it. And if Noach would have taught them about boundaries, rather than trying to teach them about the truth or the untruth of wooden gods, he might have gotten through to them. But he's banging on a problem that's old, that doesn't exist. And you know what? Unfortunately, there's still many people out there that's just behind the times. And I'm talking about rabbis. I'm talking about big people even. You know, I had somebody call me today and he said to me, will you do me a favor and will you teach my son? And I said to him, but you know, you're from the Hasidic community. I'm not really from the Hasidic community. So, you know, if you want me to teach your son about marriage, I can teach him. I have no problem with it. But, you know, I would have thought you'd want to go to somebody from the Hasidic community. He goes, well, I have 7 boys. And 5 of my boys have gone to a certain individual that he mentioned. And he said, you know, he's unfortunately starting to get behind the times. So whilst 30 years ago, he was a great teacher, he doesn't understand children today anymore. And therefore, he's still talking to them in the same way he spoke to them 30 years ago. But a child in 1990 and a child in 2022 is not the same child, even from a Hasidic family. Certainly not from a secular family. You know, I look back at the kids in my years and I look back at the kids the way they behave today. Vast difference. Think about your kids and think about your grandchildren, right? Do you not see a difference between certain things that we were never allowed to do? Kids today at 10 are doing them already. And it's considered fully acceptable. And sometimes, weirdly enough, the parents pay for it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Brian, I see you shaking your, you're nodding your head. Where we like, we would have gotten smacked for doing that. And even if we didn't get smacked, we would have gotten reprimanded, stuck in our room. Now the parents are doing it for the kids.
We went to one yesterday.
Yeah.
And we went in and I was standing in front of it in the back. So she said to the woman,
yes.
The kid sat in the chair and literally sat next to him. Is it all right to sit down? So she got up and I said,
really?
Yeah.
No, but you teach the child. You know, there's a woman over here that, you know, that can stand. Teach the child the morality. Stand up for your elders. Where's the respect? Instead, it's the other way around, right? So what have you taught this child? You get to sit, I'll stand. No, it's the other way around. You've missed a huge opportunity over here, an educational opportunity to teach this child to respect their elders. Not to say you're old, but you're older than the child. You know what I mean? That much we can say respect. But instead, what has happened over here is the mother got up and the child now feels one up on the parent as well. Because my mother didn't stand up. My mother stood up. I didn't have to stand up. She stood up. So then you say to mommy, you do this and mommy do that. Because they have now this illusion that actually they're more important than the parent. And I'll prove to you that I'm more important than my parent. Because when it came to the question of who should stand up, should I stand up or my parents stand up? My parents stood up and let me sit. That's a real problem. We're giving the wrong messages. But the important thing is that whoever the teacher is going to be, it is so important to know who your crowd is and to tailor your message for the crowd. You know, Rav, there's a famous mashal that they say the Maggid of Dubna was a famous Maggid, and what was famous about him was that he used to give parables. And somebody once asked him, he says, how is it that every parable that you say is bang on, always hits the bullseye? How'd you do it? He says, let me tell you a parable. That's how he explained it. He said, there was a guy who was walking, you know what I'm talking about. Yes, there you go. Shmuley knows exactly what I mean. There's guys walking down the path in the forest, and he sees an arrow. It's a perfect bullseye. Wow, perfect bullseye. It's pretty impressive. He moves on another 100 meters. He finds another tree with an arrow, perfect bullseye. And then he goes another 200 meters further and he finds another arrow, perfect bullseye. He thinks to himself, who is this archer? This archer every single time, perfect bullseye. I've never met anybody that can shoot an arrow so well. And then he bumps into a guy with a bow and arrow. He goes, "Excuse me, sir." He says, "Yeah. Are you the archer that did those 3 arrows?" He says, "Yes, I am." Can I commend you? Really? I mean, I've never seen anybody shoot arrows in such a brilliant way. How'd you do it? He says, "Oh, it's very simple. You could do it yourself also." He says, "Me, I've never even." He says, "Watch." So he takes him to a tree, shoots the arrow. Says, "You see the arrow there? Yeah. Now I paint the thing around it." But that's what you do. How do you end up with a bullseye every single time? If I shoot the arrow first and then I draw everything around it, I'll always end up with a bullseye because it was there first. So what he said is, what the Dubna Maggid says is, I create first the message and then I create the mashal around it, right? I know that I'm forming something with that message in mind. And therefore, when I formed the story was formed with the message. And that's, I've had times where I've taught people have come to me and says, "Help me, please. I want to prepare a bar mitzvah drasha for my son." I said, "Okay, well, what do you want to say?" He goes, "Well, what are you asking me what I want to say? That's why I came to you, right? Why are you turning it back?" I said, "No, I'll try to help you figure something out. But I can't just make up a message, right? Explain to me, who's your son? What do you admire about your son? What would you like to say to your son on the day of his bar mitzvah?" So the guy said, "Well, that's a big question." I said, "All right, well, come back next week." So he came back a week later and he had made notes and he says, "Okay, my son, these are his great attributes. These are the things I really admire about him. This is the message I'd like to give." I say, "Great. Now that you know the message, we can work backwards and find a Dvar Torah to fit the message that you want to give." Because that's how it works. But many times people look through the Chumash and say, "Where can I find a nice Dvar Torah?" So you find a nice Dvar Torah and then you go, "Okay, how do I take that Dvar Torah and now twist it to make it make sense to say something about my son?" Good luck, right? Because sometimes it makes no sense. Have you ever heard a drasha and it feels like the guy somehow like squished it together and tried to maneuver it and manipulate it somehow and it doesn't make any sense the way he says it? Why did he do that? Because he found a nice Dvar Torah. He had a message here and a Dvar Torah here, and he's trying to marry the two, and they don't marry. So he's got to create like a whole surgery to make the two come together. But if you start with your message first, and then afterwards you work out what it is, how you can tailor the Dvar Torah and everything else to the message, that makes sense. And here also you have to know your message. What is your message? You're going to give the wrong message, you're going to miss the boat. Rabbi Leff has a famous story that he tells from many years ago. He says he was a Rav in Miami Beach, which goes back probably 40, 50 years ago. Says he was a Rav in Miami Beach, and there was a big Rav from New York, and they paid him a lot of money to come and to speak at their community in Miami Beach. And he came and he spoke to the community, and he spoke about the terrible travesty of people that are unscrewing light bulbs in the chandeliers on Shabbos so that not all the light bulbs are burning because they're trying to save themselves a bit of electricity. Okay, I'm sure people are starting to do that now, considering what the prices for electricity are. But that was his message to the community in Miami. And Rav Leff said it flopped terribly. Because maybe where this guy was from in Borough Park was full of old Hungarian Jews that came from Europe who all wanted to have a chandelier in their house. Yeah, so that's what their houses look like. He said, but you came to Miami Beach, it was a young, yuppie community. And nobody had a chandelier. And now you're telling the whole community, hey guys, when you put on the chandelier for Shabbos, make sure that all the bulbs are screwed in. Don't take away from the covet of Shabbos by unscrewing one of the light bulbs. And they're like, chandeliers? What chandeliers? Right? And even great kiruv organizations. I remember I heard it said by few very great people in the world of kiruv rechokim, in the world of bringing closer Jews that are slightly unaffiliated or very unaffiliated. It says it used to bring people into seminar. Seed used to do this. And what was the main seed seminar they used to do? What were the main things they used to discuss at a seed seminar? The fundamentals. Belief in God, Torah being divine, and the oral law. Because the truth is, if I could prove those three things to you, then in reality, you have no choice but to do what, if you are a real, truth-seeking individual, you have no other recourse other than to change your life. Because if I prove to you that God exists, and I prove to you that he gave the Torah, and I prove to you that the transmission that we have from then till now is still accurate, and therefore the Torah that we hold today is the same Torah we see from God, and I believe that there's a God and he gave the Torah, so then what choice do you have other than doing what the Torah said? So for many years, that was what they tried to do. You brought people into a seminar, you taught them about God, you taught them about the divine Torah, you taught them about the fact that the oral law has still been passed down correctly. Done, snookered, aren't you? They realized a few years ago, 10, 20 years ago, that stopped working. That doesn't work anymore. Was it Kenny Owl shut down? That doesn't work anymore. Because people nowadays, even if you prove to them the truth, they're like, but I don't fancy living that way. For people nowadays, it's not so much about truth, and it's much more about comfort and about meaning. And therefore, a lot of these seminars have changed instead to teach people that living a Torah life is the most meaningful life that you can have. At a later stage, they will then prove to you the fact that God exists and the Torah is divine and that it's all been passed down correctly. But first, what you need to get through to the people is not so much that it's a true divine Torah. You need to show them, I live a better life than you do. I have more fun than you do. I have a better relationship with my wife than you do because I follow the Torah. Because I have rules that I follow. I don't just do whatever I want to. It doesn't just work willy-nilly. And when they start to see, hey, these guys have tools for real living. These guys have tools for educating children. These guys have tools for creating respectful generations and for meaning. I want to buy into that. Then you can say to them, okay, now not only can I give you meaning, I can actually give you truth as well. Wow. Not only meaning, but the meaning that you're giving me is also true. That's the next level up. That's even greater. But first, what people want to hear nowadays is meaning. Truth doesn't speak to people the same way it used to. And I remember a guy telling me this in Whitefield. I remember when I was in Whitefield College, and the guy said this to me, and I couldn't believe a guy would even say this. But now if I think about it, it makes sense. He said, I don't know if I had a revelation from God, a real revelation of prophecy from God, who said to me I had to behave in a certain way, I'm not sure I would. And the guy was being dead honest with me. He wasn't trying to sort of schmooze me. He wasn't trying to say, oh, I'm not afraid of God. He just felt, I like my life the way it is. So if I had a revelation and God said, hey, Michael, you need to change your life. His name had to be Michael. That's how I use it. You need to change your life. He'd be like, all right, whatever. I don't have to. Because I don't feel compelled by the fact that God spoke to me to tell me I need to do something. But that's the generation we live in. We're not compelled by truth. We're not. We're compelled by the things that make us feel a certain way. And that's very important to know. And therefore, because we're not compelled by truth, if nowadays you're going to try to bring people close by teaching them the truth, you will not be successful. Why? Because they couldn't care less about the truth. But it's true. So, no, but it's true. Yeah, and therefore, why should I change just because it's true? Don't you care? A little. Not really. No, but I want to teach you how to live. Oh, now you're talking. You got to find the things that speak to people. It's so important. If your message is not going to be tailored to people, and if your message is not going to be something that people can actually, that resonates with people, and something that they feel is important in their life, you will get absolutely nowhere. And that's why Noach gets nowhere. You know why Noach gets nowhere? Because he's trying really hard to convince people of something that they're convinced of already. Hey guys, these idols don't work. And they're like, yeah. No, but they don't work. I know that. And therefore, well, they're not true. And therefore what? Therefore I should be moral? Not interested. I want to be immoral. You got to convince me why I shouldn't be immoral. Not that the idols aren't true. Because I know that already. That's not going to convince me of changing my life. You got to speak to people differently. You got to know what it is that will speak to people. And only when you know what it is to speak to people and what the real point is that they need to hear, only then can you actually have an effect on people. You can never have an effect on people by trying to tell them about something that's totally irrelevant to them. They'll be like, and therefore what? What's the point you're trying to make? I don't understand. I was speaking to somebody today, he was talking to me about the dangers of technology. So I said to him, maybe we should work together on this. I feel very strongly about this, that, for children, for young adolescents, there's a danger in technology. That doesn't mean let's shut ourselves down from technology, but use it responsibly, because technology used irresponsibly is a real weapon. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible disease. It does terrible things to children, to adults, et cetera, et cetera. And we allow our kids to use technology without even monitoring it. Yeah, fine. Here, just take an iPod or just take an iPad. And I'll give you the Wi-Fi password. And you can play on it for 2 or 3 hours. I trust you. You won't do anything that's untoward. The kids probably think to themselves, are you stupid or something? Like, how naive can you be? I'm not going to do something I'm not supposed to do. What would you do if you were 15 years old and you were given an iPad when you were 15 that had full access to the internet everywhere? And you never even checked, the parents never even came and checked the history or anything like that. What would you do as a teenager? No, I would only watch science videos. Really? You serious? Come on, get with the program. So he said, well, all these boys that, they have items like technology and they love football. They love watching football. I said, okay, let them watch football. So there's nothing wrong with it. But you need to explain to them why, if they veer off from football and start with stuff that they're not supposed to watch, start doing what they're not supposed to do, you need to tell them why that's going to ruin their life. But don't explain to them, look, it's not the frum thing to do. Because for some of these kids, the frum thing to do doesn't matter so much. You know what? God won't be so happy if you watch something that's not so clean. Okay, so I won't be happy. He says, no, but you have to understand, it's going to ruin you. And we know that. We know from many studies that watching things you're not supposed to watch actually ruins people. It can get them addicted because of the dopamine that comes out when you watch things you're not supposed to watch. It can give people the wrong idea of marriage, of intimacy, of love, of what it is, between a husband and a wife, because all they're seeing is terrible domination. They're not seeing the reality of what the world is. So you need to speak to them in a way that they understand. I'm saying, I'm telling you this to help you in your life, not to be frum. Because if I come to you and I say, you need to be frummer, they're like, I don't want to be any frummer than this. I'm quite happy with my level. Forget about being frum in this instance. You want to live a good life? What you're doing now is going to ruin your chances of living a good life. Really? I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's a message that they can hear. That's a different message. And as parents, as educators, as teachers, whoever you might be, as grandparents, you need to learn what the messages are that will penetrate through to the hearts and minds of those people that you speak to. And you need to find a way to give those messages over that's actually going to speak to them. Because just giving a message, we can all stand up and give a message. But is it actually going to hit home? It's funny. I was sitting at a wedding yesterday and we were talking about messages and droshes. So the guy I was sitting next to said to me that he had a friend of his who had a real pet peeve about rabbis that go on forever at weddings. Because you go to from weddings, they have to call like 3 or 4 rabbis to speak. And sometimes you get a rabbi that gets up to speak and he thinks it's his shir in shul. So he's going on 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And everyone's like, are you going to finish or something? We have a wedding to have here. We've not invited you to give a chumash here. This is a wedding. 5 to 10 minutes. Come on, finish up. So this guy was getting very, very head up about it. And he was mentioning it. And next to him was a rabbi who was a real culprit that always spoke forever. Always spoke ages. And the rabbi heard him speak about that. And he said to him, he says, listen, I have 2 ways of speaking. I either speak short or I make it very interesting. That was his way of spinning the whole story. Make it very interesting. And this guy's like, you missed the boat. Because nobody's interested. Nobody is interested. You go to a wedding and people don't want to sit for half an hour to be captive. You're a captive audience, literally. I'm captive to this guy. I'm waiting for the next course, and it's not going to come out until this guy sits down. Where's the main course? And the dancing is off. Everything's off, and nobody's like, why is he going on and on and on? Why is he doing that? So you missed your message. And what Noach teaches us over here is that if you're going to miss the message, then nobody's going to hear what you have to say, and nobody's going to be interested. You can't say, I'll speak long, but it'll be interesting. So nobody wants to hear your long speech, no matter how interesting you make it. After 5 or 10 minutes, people start doing this. When's he finishing already? Because everyone's frustrated with him. Because he's not finishing. He just didn't stop. So that's what Noach teaches. I thought there's a beautiful idea by the Amos Yaakov, a very, very penetrating idea. Not so much, again, as a beautiful as in thought, but I think it's a very special idea. Okay. One more idea, and with that, we're going to finish. What happens over here is Noach, for 120 years, is building this teva. And then, if you look on page 32, verse 3, no, verse 4, and it's missing some of the verses on the side over here. They've not been put in, but it's verse 4. It says the following: Ki liyamim shiva. For in 7 more days, I'm going to make it rain on the land 40 days and 40 nights. And I will blot out all the existence which I have made from the face of the ground. That is what the Torah says. So why do we give another 7 days? How long have we said before already, how many years did God give them? 120 years. And then what happened? Nothing. Another 7 days. Yeah. Do you know the parents that say, like, I'll count to 3, and you better be down here when I get to 3. 1, 2, 2.5, there you go. 2 3/4. 2 9/10. 3, you're still not here yet. I give you to 5. Well, what was the point of that? If he didn't come down by 3, he's not going to come down by 5 either. What's the point of changing that? God says 7 more days. We wait 120 years for this. Why don't you just get to the end of it and God say, okay, we're done. I told you, time's out, boom. So what Rav Zalman Sorotzkin says, very interesting to understand the psychology of people. People sometimes get stuck in certain places. They get stuck in certain places in their mind. They get stuck in certain things that they do. And it's very, very hard to get them out of it. You know, one of the places I've seen this tremendously is with COVID. You know, even when science sort of said certain things are okay, a lot of people still said, but I don't feel comfortable with it. But science has now said that this is actually not an issue. I know, I don't feel comfortable with it. And that's okay. You know, it's okay not to feel comfortable with certain things. You know, everybody has their level of comfort. On the other hand, but I've seen people that have literally gotten stuck. They got stuck in this mode. And then you're like 2 years, 3 years, 5. I mean, we're only 3 years after, but you know, I can imagine these people 5 years, 10 years down the line. You're going to say to them, guys, you know, it's time to move on. I was at a shul recently in Vienna, and they had a mask mandate in the shul. And I said, I said to my father, I don't understand it. He says, well, the Gabbai is a doctor, and he says he feels uncomfortable with it, and therefore, you know, we all still wear masks in shul. And I said, but you don't wear masks in restaurants, and you don't wear masks on public transport. Well, you do have to over there. I realized afterwards you have to wear a mask in public transport. But people are going around, they're meeting with friends, and they're going to Kiddushim. Right? Afterwards on Shabbos, they have a Kiddush. So you know what? They're sitting in shul with a mask, everybody, and then they're going out and eating together, kugel and cholent at a Kiddush. So where's the sense in that? Do you think that COVID knows what cholent and kugel is and doesn't come anywhere? Like you said, what's that cholent smell? I got to get out of here. Yeah, it smells of cholent. I can't go around when there's cholent or when people are chewing. That's not the kind of thing. I will only get people when they pray. I will never touch anybody who's eating cholent. I never would even think about that. That's wrong. That's ethically and morally wrong to get somebody full of COVID while they're having cholent. Of course, it sounds ridiculous, right? Pardon? But it's human nature. The human nature is to get stuck somewhere. We get used to certain things, and even sometimes when it makes no more sense, we still get used to it, and we behave in certain ways because that's how we've always behaved. There's the most fascinating experiment that they did with a bunch of monkeys. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. Basically, what they did was they put 5 monkeys in a cage, and they put some sweets in the middle. And when one of the monkeys took a sweet, they doused all the monkeys in water. And the monkeys didn't like that. So they took a sweet and he got doused in water. And then they realized after a while that taking the sweet caused them to get doused in water. So whenever one of the monkeys used to take a sweet, the other monkeys used to beat up on the monkey that took the sweet. Okay? That's what happened. Now what they did is they took out one of the monkeys and replaced him with another monkey. Okay? And then the same thing happened again. And another monkey and another monkey. And basically what happened was at one point or another, they had replaced all 5 monkeys. And even though now they didn't get doused in water anymore, when one of the monkeys took a sweet, the other 4 monkeys beat up on him. And they didn't even know why they were doing it. But the thing was, when the monkey touches the sweet, we all have to beat him up. Why? Nobody even remembers why. Nobody knows why this happens. So you say, oh, that's monkeys. Unfortunately, we're very similar. Yeah, I'm not trying to say this is an evolutionary proof or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that. But we sometimes behave like that as well. We do stupid things that make no sense just because we got stuck in them. Why do you do this? Because we've always done it. Can we do it differently? No. But maybe it makes sense nowadays to do it differently. We're not changing, all right? Don't stop playing this game with me. Okay, fine, so we'll keep it the same way. If it's not successful, it doesn't matter. So Noach has been saying in 120 years and 120 years, 120 years, 120 years. Finally, God said, people thought to themselves, like, okay, this guy's gotten stuck in this 120-year narrative. He's just going to go on and on and on about the 120 years. He's never going to change. Suddenly Noach says, okay, guys, 7 days left. That's it. What, he's gone off the 120 years? People are starting to realize now, when you change the narrative, suddenly people are like, hey, the narrative's changed. Maybe he's actually serious about what he's saying. Because a change in the narrative might also indicate a change in people's perception of what he's saying. And that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to change the perception of people. So I say people, hey guys, get with the program. 7 days left. Well, you've been saying 120 years for all this time. Like, what happened to 120 years? Well, the 120 years are up now. 7 days and that's it. Wow. This guy means it. And sometimes you just got to shake it up a little bit. Can't say the same thing over and over and over again. Because when you say the same thing over and over again, people tune out. People are like, this is this old, it's old stuff, old hat. I've heard this so many times from him before. You heard this? Yeah, I've heard it also. We've all heard it already. When you get somebody new that comes to shul and he hears a rabbi and he speaks about something, he comes and goes, this rabbi is fantastic. He said this drasha 16 times already. It's your first time in shul, so you got all excited about the rabbi's drasha. Yeah, I've heard this so many times on the rabbi already. I'm sick of him saying it. Can he not say anything else? But he sounded really, for the first time around when you heard it, it sounded really good. Afterwards, 10 times down the line, you're like, can this guy not write another drasha? So you're new here, so you don't know the difference. But everybody else is not new. We've heard it, we're sick of it. You hear things again and again, you get sick of them. So Noach over here, God says we have to change it slightly. I'm going to give them a 7-day warning to see maybe somebody's going to wake up. Maybe someone's going to say, hey, the narrative's changed. Maybe they actually mean it seriously. Okay. Well, did you change? No. Okay, fine. But at least I give you a chance. If I kept the narrative the same all the way to the end, people might have said, this guy's been saying it for 120 years. He's just crazy. He's just a crazy guy that says the same thing again and again. But now he's changed his whole tune. Are you going to listen? Or are you still going to get stuck? So that's why we have this last 7 days. So that's the ideas I wanted to share with you tonight. We had more to share, but we ran out of time. Thank you so much to all those who've joined us on Facebook Live. Thank you to those who joined us on Zoom. And for those on Torah Anytime, please, Hashem, come back, listen again. If you want to get in touch, davideisenberg@gmail.com. Thank you to Torah Anytime also for hosting this. And Hashem, look forward to speaking to all you guys next week.